Hello and welcome to a preview of the Men's T20 World Cup, which begins on Sunday, and you'll be able to hear every ball of every game live on 5 Live Sports Extra. And joining me for this preview is Paul Farbrace, World T20 winning head coach with Sri Lanka back in 2014 and part of the England coaching team in 2016 when they reached the final. Evening, Paul.
Good evening, Ellie. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, thank you. And also I'm delighted to say we're joined by Ravi Bopara, part of England's World T20 winning squad from 2010. Hi, Ravi.
Hi, Ellie. Hi, Paul.
Good evening, Ravi.
Great to have you both with us. I want some memories, first of all, on your great T20 World Cup moments. I mean, that final over at Eden Gardens in 2016. I'm not quite sure whether it was a great one, but it was certainly a memorable one, wasn't it? That extraordinary final over.
I don't remember too much about it, to be honest, Ellie. It was a very, very strange end to a game. I mean, there was long periods where I didn't think we were ever winning the game, and then CJ closed out the previous over, I think with a dot ball off the last ball of the penultimate over, and all of a sudden it was, actually, we've got a chance here, until Carlos decided to change the course of history in that one over on his own. So it was extraordinary. It really was an extraordinary finish to an extraordinary tournament. I mean, I reckon I packed and unpacked about 4 times during that tournament, thinking we were going home at so many various stages.
Well, because and actually, as you say, right up until that last, well, as it turned out, 4 balls, that last over, 19 needed, wasn't it, off the last over? Chris Jordan, who we'll hear from in a second, bowling a dot ball with the penultimate over. Ben Stokes with the ball in his hand. I mean, it was just an insane period of extraordinary hitting from Carlos Brathwaite. But I mean, Ravi, that's the kind of thing that can happen in T20.
Absolutely, the game shifts momentum in a matter of balls in T20 cricket, and that's what you got to be careful of as a player when you're in tight situations. Every single ball counts. You know, you can be in an over where you're going, you've gone for 10, you may have gone for 15, you still got a ball left. You got to make sure you close out that over. It's so important. One ball can change your game.
And I thought what was really interesting as well, the fact that Ben Stokes, you watch the video of that and he looks absolutely shattered, Paul, doesn't he, in that moment when Carlos has just deposited him into the stand 4 times in a row. But the way he then came back from that, took it on to 2019, the things he said to Jofra Archer before the super over in the 2019 50 over World Cup final, he has exemplified learning from something when things go wrong.
Absolutely, and he was extraordinary that night because he was distraught. Everybody was, but everybody got round him. I remember Trevor Bayliss making an absolute beeline for him. As soon as the last ball was hit, Trevor was out of his seat and walked, and I've never seen him walk onto a field. Normally he disappears off down a tunnel somewhere and gets out of the limelight, but he walked straight onto the square and went straight up to Ben, and he just headed straight for him. And many people did. I mean, many laid on the floor. The West Indian team and support staff, everyone else were running all around the field, and we were trying to get Stokesy up and off the field and try and look after him, and the team closed in around him. They supported him, and everybody in that changing room just felt his pain, because as Ravi said, it takes a lot to want to bowl that last over, and as he said, the game can change on one ball here and there, and everybody just felt for Ben that night. But you're absolutely right. He learned a huge lesson, despite Mo and Ali telling him he should never, ever bowl the last over of any game ever again, which was great humour in a tough change room. But that's typical of Mo, because he can get away with things like that. And I think you needed a bit of humour. You needed a bit of understanding that it's such a fine line in that sort of game. But Stokesy learnt so much, and he shared that experience, as you said, with Jofra in the World Cup final at Lords. And it shows so much about Ben as a team player and as someone that gives so much to everybody else around him.
And when the tournaments, I mean, it was the shortest form of the game. It played internationally, it still is. It played internationally. We've got T10, we've got the 100 now as well. But Ravi, as you say, it's over so quickly. A game is over so quickly. The tournament's over so quickly as well. And when you won it in 2010, did you think you were going to win it that year?
If I'm being honest, I didn't have any expectations when we went to West Indies at that time. But as the tournament went on and the makeup of the side it just felt like no one could deal with us because I felt like we had every base covered. As you know, more and more games that we played, you had Ryan Sidebottom, who was tremendous with the ball during that World Cup. The fact that we had a left armour who was swinging it, and it's not often that white ball swings, but he was swinging it, and he was swinging it big. He was probably at his peak then, and there wasn't a team or an opening pair in the whole competition that could deal with him. So he always got us off to brilliant starts with the ball. Kieswetter and Lummy were in great form. They were very aggressive at that time, and obviously KP had a very good tournament. So, I mean, World Cups and T20 tournaments, you just need a couple of guys to have really good tournaments. And, you know, you don't know how far you can go. It just takes a couple of players to get going. They're in great form. They're feeling good about themselves. They bring confidence to the rest of the team because you're winning. And then all of a sudden, especially in a World Cup where, you know, the knockout stages get there, it's just a matter of performing.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right, Ellie, because, you know, I was with Sri Lanka 2009 and we had Murali and Ajantha Mendis at their absolute best. And we won every game through that tournament here in England, except for the final. We lost the final to Pakistan. But we got to a stage where, as Ravi said, you just feel that you're on a roll, you're not going to lose a game. And we beat everyone. We knocked West Indies and Australia out in the first stages we went through, Ireland, New Zealand. I can't remember who else we beat. And then we beat the West Indies in a semi-final, which was an extraordinary game at the Oval. And then, having thought that we'd hit upon this unbelievable formula, because also you go into that tournament, you have plans. And I seem to remember, Ravi, that England changed their opening pair leading into that tournament that they won. And we went into it not quite sure how to play it in England. And Murali was absolutely fantastic, bowling round the wicket, bowling as Doosras across the right-handers, taking the ball away. Not many people have seen Mendis. And we hit upon a combination halfway through that tournament that just worked until we got to the final and unfortunately lost in the final. So it's, you know, momentum and coming across the right team, the right combination is absolutely crucial. And sometimes you don't actually know if you've got it right until you're into the tournament.
Well, England will have their first game a week on Saturday. They play, funnily enough, the West Indies. Isn't it funny how these things get thrown up sometimes just to try and get revenge 5 years on of that defeat in the final. But this England squad, let me just read it out to you. Eoin Morgan is the captain. Then it's Moeen Ali, Johnny Bairstow, Sam Billings, Jos Buttler, Chris Jordan, Liam Livingstone, David Malan, Tamal Mills, Adil Rashid, Jason Roy, David Willey, Chris Wokes, Mark Wood. I've left someone out there because Sam Curran, of course, was due to be part of it, but he's injured. He's not going to play. I mean, first of all, Ravi, you look at that squad and there are so many terrific players in that team. So many players who've done incredible white ball things in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's a very, very strong team. And all of those players have shown great performances throughout white ball cricket in the last 5 years. I feel like there is a piece missing, obviously, Ben Stokes, because the balance he gives the squad or the team, the playing 11, it just allows you to play that extra batsman or that extra bowler. I feel like there is a little piece missing there, but I think England do have more than enough to cover that. And they, I would say, one of the most dangerous teams in the World Cup. And I think other people know that too. Speaking to players from around the world in some of these leagues that I've been to, everybody is saying England are going to be there in the final four. England are going to be there in the final four. They're so dangerous. This batsman, this bowler. And that's great things to hear.
Mm. And Tom Curran is the person who I didn't have on my original list, but Sam Curran missing out. Chris Wokes, Farby, it's interesting because he hasn't played international T20, or he's barely played international T20 in 6 years or something like that. But I mean, is he the man to? He's not Ben Stokes, obviously, but could he fill that Ben Stokes all-rounder position?
It definitely can. I think he can. I would probably have Wokes batting at 7 in that side. And I'm with Ravi. I think not only do you lose Stokes' all-round quality bat bowl in the field, you also lose his skill of understanding games. He's a very shrewd thinker on the game. He'd be a great asset to Morgs on the field. But his sheer presence against opposition is fantastic, and it will be a shame that England haven't got him. But I think Wokes is more than capable of, as I say, batting probably 7 and bowling his overs. I think that will be the role that he'll probably play. And it's amazing to think that he actually hasn't played for so long. I remember him playing against India 2014. I'm sure Ravi probably played in the game at Edgbaston, and he closed the game out against Dhoni in a T20 game there, and closed it out really, really well. And I remember him doing it in other games. And yet it's interesting that when he got picked back in the squad earlier in the summer, he and I had a conversation at Trent Bridge, and he said, "Why did you never pick me? Why did I keep missing out?" And I said, "Mate, I can't honestly remember." I said, it was probably Trev, but I couldn't actually. I didn't actually have a reason why he didn't play. Whether we were saving him for 50-over cricket and Test match cricket, I don't really know. But I think in the end we had so many good options that he just didn't get in, and it's remarkable to think that he hasn't played for such a long time.
Who would be in your starting lineup for that first game against West Indies, Ravi?
Do you know what? I was talking about this the other day, and I had a couple of theories. Well, not theories, but a couple of teams. I also had Wokesy batting at 7 as well, Fabi.
Oh, good. Great minds think alike, Ravi.
Yeah, I had him batting at 7. I had, obviously, you've got Bairstow opening the batting. Now, there's a slight question mark over who he opens with, only because if you bat with Roy, then I feel it's very right-hander heavy in that top 4, and I feel like there's a space there for someone like Mo to come in and maybe open the batting, because it just means that teams can't just bring on a left-arm spinner and get away with it. Be with 2 right-handers in, and then you've got obviously at number 3. Who did I have at number 3? Fabi.
We've only got an hour, I think. Rav, we've only got an hour for this programme. You're not getting yourself into that team either, are you?
I had Livy at 4, Morgie at 5. Then you got.
So
Buttler
did you have Roy at 3 in that case?
No, if Roy doesn't open, then for me Roy doesn't play. That's if he doesn't open, for me he doesn't play. I rate him very, very highly. So if they do go with Roy and Bairstow, then I just feel like it's going to be very right-hander heavy.
So you're leaving out the best player in the world then in Milan, who's a left-hander, Rav. Don't forget that.
Well, no, exactly. So there is 2 options at number 3, isn't there? There's Milan, and I've just forgotten. It's just.
Do you want to have a think about this? We're going to play a bit of Chris Jordan talking. You have a think, Ravi. Fabi, you have a think as well. Give us your starting lineup. But we'll talk more about that because we're going to hear from Chris Jordan. Fabi mentioned him. He bowled the penultimate over in that 2016 final, and he's confident that England will be in the mix at the end of this tournament too.
I'm pretty optimistic. Training the last couple of days, the focus is really, really clear. Obviously, we've been playing together for quite some time now, so we know each other's games pretty well. We played in quite a few high pressure and big games, if you like, in front of big crowds. So from that point of view, I think everyone's nice and calm. It's just about going through our process like we have been doing for the past 4 years since the last T20 World Cup, in terms of doing our due diligence on the opposition, checking conditions, and just seeing how best we can exploit them and play to each other's strengths.
You've obviously been out in this part of the world for a little while, part of the Punjab team. How big an advantage do you think it is for players amongst teams that have had contributors to the IPL, have had a chance to make the most of conditions and get used to the pitches?
I think solely from a weather point of view, if you like, because it's been very, very hot in Dubai. And obviously when it gets so hot, you start to get tired. That's when decision making and stuff starts to come into question. So being acclimatized to the weather and the temperatures has been, I think, the biggest one. so that obviously when you do get in those high pressure moments and you're tiring, and you can still be making some clear decisions. So yeah, I do think obviously it's been great coming out and getting a little bit of a head start, but team chemistry and all those things will come into play as well, and the team that gels quicker and so adapts to conditions as quickly as possible, I think will be in a good position, a strong position.
How much of a boost might it be if Eoin Morgan can lead Calcutta Knight Riders to the IPL title and then join up with the England team afterwards?
A huge boost. That's definitely the ideal world, implementing his sort of philosophies and the way he wants to play the game, and you can really see the players responding to it, and that's the strength and character of the person, you know. And yeah, in the ideal world, if he takes them all the way, I can't see that being nothing but a positive for the team, with him coming in with confidence to lead us through our campaign as well.
Well, that was Chris Jordan talking to Adam Mountford. Before we talk a bit more about Eoin Morgan and his form, Ravi, can you reveal your number 3 in the England starting lineup against West Indies?
I've gone Roy Bairstow, Moeen Ali at 3, Livingston at 4, Morgan at 5, Butler at 6.
Butler?
Yep. Wokesy at 7. Then you've got Jordan at 8, and you got Rashid and the 2 quicks, Mark Wood and Tamal Mills.
I'm so glad we got there in the end. It was worth waiting for. So having said you weren't going to open up with Bairstow and Roy, you've opened with Bairstow and Roy.
Fabi, are you happy with that?
My big thing, Ravi, I've always been Joss Butler opens for me. Best players face the most balls in T20 cricket. I've always been of a Butler fan should open. I think Butler, Roy, Bairstow, Ali is my top 4. Morgan, Livingston 5 and 6. And then the bowling end of it, Wokes, Jordan, Wood, Mills, Rashid. I'm the same as you. So I think we're pretty similar in terms of it. I agree with you about the right hand combination at the top 3, but I think Mo's stats against spin are fantastic. So Mo could easily go in at 3, and I think with having that sort of Bairstow 3, Ali 4, Morgan 5, Livingston 6, I think that 4 can go in any order. I think there's enough flexibility to go in that order. But I would, without a shadow of a doubt, I would go Butler and Roy. But I do get your point about if they go with left arm spin, the first over or off spin, you would ideally like to have a right left hand combination. But I'm Butler opening every day of the week.
Right, okay. Well, we're not going to carry on this because otherwise we'll be here all night. But I am going to refer you back to the Chris Jordan interview that we just heard with Adam Mountford, and talking about the IPL and Eoin Morgan and speculating on whether he might lead Kolkata Knight Riders to the final. Well, he did in the most extraordinary finish. I don't know if you were listening or watching that earlier on today against Delhi Capitals, but KKR absolutely cruising it with, about 5 overs to go, and then lost 6 wickets for 7 runs before they finally won it with a 6 on the penultimate ball of the game. But Eoin Morgan getting another duck. He's not got scores. He's only got into double figures once in the IPL for KKR, Fabi. So what do you make of Eoin Morgan's form as a batsman? And does it matter when he's such an outstanding captain?
It doesn't, and I've never worried. I mean, the amount of times during my time working with the England team, Morgs would be out of form going into a tournament. People would talk about his lack of runs. He will find a way to score runs, and I'm picking him in the team regardless. You know, I think he's such a good captain, and it's interesting that you played that audio there of CJ, Chris Jordan. We played a game, and this, for me, this sums up why Morgs is so important. We played a game in Sharjah against Pakistan. It went to a super over. CJ had bowled the worst couple of overs I've ever seen him bowl in international cricket. Kept missing his Yorkers, knee-high full tosses, and it went to the super over. And Trev and I were walking onto the field towards Morgs, and I said to Trev, who's bowling the super over? And he said, anyone but CJ. And I said, I completely agree. We can't bowl CJ the way he's just bowled. And as we got to Morgs, I said, who are you going with? He said, CJ. And I said, yeah, great idea. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But Trevor and I walked away saying, what do we know? He bowled the over for 2. It was the best over I've seen him bowl. He went for 2. We had to chase 3 to win, and we got the game and we won the game. And it shows Morgan's belief in players, and Ravi will tell you, when you look at Morgs in a tight situation, his belief in players, his calmness under pressure, the players absolutely love it. They respond to him fantastically. But in terms of his lack of runs, he is a strange. He's one of the strangest guys I've ever come across, because he can go weeks and weeks without a run. All of a sudden, he'll get you 85 off 35 balls, and you think he looks in the greatest touch he's ever been in. So I've never worried about Morgs. He is the best captain, and I think he will play every game, and I think he'll end up playing a crucial part in England winning this World Cup.
What do you make of him, Ravi? What do you say about a captain like Eoin Morgan?
I completely agree with Fabi. He's one thing that's very important, I think, or a skill that a captain should have, is being consistent. And he is so
Even if
consistent.
it's consistently scoring low runs.
But he is so consistent with his behaviour throughout a game, off the field. And the best thing he does is he backs his players, no matter how hard that player is finding it. He's not scoring runs or he's not bowling well. He'll always back you. And there's nothing better as a player to know that your captain rates you highly or your coach rates you highly. They are brilliant things to have, because that's how you bring the best out in players. And that's why England have been so successful over the last few years in white ball cricket, is because he backs them, and they know that even if they do go through a low patch or a lean patch, they're still going to be there. They're still going to have opportunities. It just allows players to play freely. And also, Fabi, I don't worry about his form either, because you're exactly right. He can go a few innings without scoring, but it doesn't faze him, which is the most important thing. And he just comes back out of nowhere and smacks 70, and it wins England games. And he will perform better in England shirt. I truly do believe that.
Well, you can hear Kolkata Knight Riders against Chennai Super Kings in Friday's IPL final. It will be live on 5 Live Sports Extra. Eoin Morgan versus Moeen Ali. First time ever that two English players have been in an IPL final. We'll talk about some of the Indian players as well, because obviously there are some real stars in that final as well. But I wanted to pick out another England player, and that's Tamal Mills. Ravi, somebody you know very well. You play with him down at Sussex. But 8 months ago, he was in a back brace. He couldn't even run, let alone bowl. But he has come back, he's bounced back in the most extraordinary fashion. And the fact that he is part of this England team, I mean, I think you both picked him in your starting lineups, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
Did you have him in, Ravi?
Yeah, of course I did. It's my teammate. Yeah, he's made a great comeback. I always thought he was good enough and he should be playing for England. Nobody else has his change of pace. He can drop down from 92 miles an hour, 93 miles an hour, and bowl you a slower ball at 70 miles an hour. And it's very, very hard to pick up, because it's out of the back of the hand. The seam looks exactly the same like if he was bowling a fast delivery. And not only that, he's also got the ability to hit you straight on the badge as well. And when you've got those three skills in your armoury, you're so hard to get away. And that's what makes him so special. And that's why I always thought he should be playing for England. And the more he plays, the better he'll get.
Are you pleased to see him back, Fabi? Because he actually made his England debut when you were on the coaching staff, weren't you? Didn't he?
He did, yes, he did. And you know, Ravi's right. He has every skill, every attribute that you want from a high quality fast bowler, and he's got an excellent cricket brain as well. He really has got an excellent cricket brain. I think it's such a good story. You know, there is a guy that has battled throughout his career to play for as long as he has, with the amount of tough injuries that he's had, but he's never given up. He's kept fighting, he's kept staying in there, and he shows time and time again how skillful he is. And again, I think it's yet another proof that Eoin Morgan has talked publicly about Ty now for probably 12, 15 months. And he's kept encouraging him. He's kept talking him up in the media. And that's given Ty an awful lot of confidence. He's given him a lot of belief that he knows that if he gets himself fit and strong and he's able to string games together, Morgs will pick him, because Morgs knows how important he is. So look, I think it's a brilliant story. I'm really pleased he's in the team, and I really hope he has a fantastic World Cup and he plays a huge part in England winning this tournament, because he's got so much about him.
I think he'll have a good World Cup, Fabi. He's quite clever in the way he goes about his death overs. You know, he's not over-reliant on bowling Yorkers. You know, he likes to go into the pitch, bowl hard length and good slower balls, bouncers with the odd Yorker, which I think is a way to go at the death now. I think, you know, guys bowling Yorkers, I think it's a little bit overrated. I think the hard length ball gets you more wickets. and you need wickets at the death. And these are big enough grounds for him to bowl that. And especially at Sharjah, if they do play at Sharjah, he will be very, very effective.
The spin options that England have, Fabi, are you trusting them?
Yeah, look, I think in Rashid you've got one of the very, very best in the world. I mean, Rash has just developed into such a fantastic cricketer. He's grown in confidence, and I think with you've got Moeen Ali, obviously, who will play and is your other frontliner. Livingston is quite capable of jamming the ball under the bat. He's quite unique. I prefer his off spin to his leg spin, and I think on the pitches they're going to play on, I think finger spinners into the pitch will be quite difficult, but Rash has developed such a level of confidence that I think it just gives England so much balance. Ravi mentioned there that earlier you've got Mills and Wood who've got genuine pace, you've got Wokes who's got real skill and craft, you've got obviously the spin of Rashid, and then Chris Jordan, who you've mentioned there, who is right up there in the world in terms of again the thing I like about the England attack is there is so much bowling intelligence. I don't normally talk about bowlers having intelligence, but in that group there's a lot of bowling intelligence. There's a lot of skill, there's a lot of nous, and that's why I think England have to be one of the main favourites for this competition, because they've got all bases covered and they've got variety. There's a point of difference to all of those bowlers. They're not all exactly the same, and it's the same. You look at Willie and Tom Curran to come into the side again, they've got a point of difference. So I think England have got so many bases covered and so much skill that it gives them such a great advantage.
And how much of an advantage will it be for the players who have played in the IPL, Ravi? And obviously that goes for quite a lot of countries have had players playing in the IPL, but you've got Morgan and Moeen who are going to be there right till the very end. How much will that benefit England, do you think?
I think it's a massive advantage. I mean, those conditions out in the UAE are quite unique. When you go to Abu Dhabi, you normally get very, very good pitches, which can have a little bit of skiddy sort of pace in them. Then you go to Dubai, where the ball can hold for the seamers. It can be really hard to get away. And then obviously you got Sharjah, where at the moment boundaries are hard to come by for a lot of the batters. So those conditions are so unique that it's brilliant that some of our players have got the opportunity to play in those conditions, get used to those conditions, so they know how to go about their business when crunch time comes in the World Cup. So all of those teams, all those players that are playing in the IPL, that are involved with their countries during the World Cup, I think they're going to have an advantage going into the first few games.
And talking about Tamal Mills, which you were a moment ago, I'm seeing here that he's bowled more overs in Dubai, Fabi, than in any other ground in the world bar Hove. So there's a man who knows the conditions.
Absolutely, and look, I think Ravi's right there, because I happened to be in Abu Dhabi last week and I watched one of the IPL games. I watched Bangalore Sunrisers game, and Ravi's right. It was a good pitch, and they do. I was interested to see how many fresh pitches they have left, because obviously they've been playing the IPL, they've got the World Cup coming up, and they've still got some very good fresh pitches to play on. And Sharjah, he's right, has been tough to score runs on. It's the smaller in terms of the boundaries, but it's been tough, and it's been a really tough surface to bat on. So, and again, that's where I think. You go back to when Andrew Strauss came in as director of cricket within England cricket. He had the foresight to say, let the players go and play in these tournaments. Let them go and play in the IPL. Because there's no question the 50-over team developed very quickly with players playing around the world. Ravi's played in all of the tournaments around the world. You mix with other players, you mix with other coaches, you learn, you understand a lot more about the game. And players were bringing information back. They were bringing a lot more confidence back, a lot of higher level of skill back. And that's where I think England have got themselves into such a good place now, because so many of these players, you go through that whole squad, they've all played in tournaments around the world. They've all played in franchise cricket. They've all experienced franchise cricket. And it can only help this England team learn and get better. And the game, every tournament, there's something new comes up. There's something different comes up. And you've got to be thinking on your feet. You've got to be clever in your analysis. And as Ravi said there, it wasn't that long ago, the Yorker was the main ball at the end of the innings. It no longer is. Bowling into the pitch, your changes of pace, working out the wind, working out the boundary length, all that sort of stuff. You've got to take that into account. So, that's where you need experience and you need thinking cricketers. And I think England have got that in this group.
Now let's talk about two teams coming into this tournament in slightly chaotic fashion. We'll speak to our good friend Adam Collins, the Australian writer and commentator, about what's been going on with Australia shortly. But first, here's TMS commentator Atif Nawaz on why Pakistan's preparation has been anything but ordinary.
So Pakistan's build-up to the World T20 this year has been far from ideal. They were scheduled to have as many as 15 warm-up matches going into the tournament, but with the well-documented cancellations of the New Zealand and the England tours and the bad weather in the West Indies, it looks like they're going to have closer to 4 warm-up matches, which is not ideal. In fact, it's less than any of the other major teams playing in the competition. And of course, there is, that traditional controversy as well with Pakistani cricket. The same day they announced their squad for the World T20, the same day their coaches Misbah-ul Haq and Waqar Younis resigned from their positions. Now, depending on who you believe, this was muted for a long time, but again, not ideal timing for the team itself. Even more curious, they were replaced by two people who have very little to none in terms of coaching experience, certainly not at international level, Matthew Hayden and Vernon Philander. And Matthew Hayden most recently has been commentating in the IPL, so he's one of the rare people that can go straight from an Indian job to a Pakistani job in world cricket. Very, very unusual. But yeah, a lot of eyebrows were raised as well. More eyebrows were raised recently after the now concluded national T20 competition in Pakistan. Sohaib Maqsood was scheduled to come in and the middle order was going to be built around him at number 3. But because of an injury, he's going to have to sit out the competition. And he's been replaced by Shoaib Malik, who's now going to be playing his 4th decade of international cricket. It's incredible.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Shoaib Malik made his debut in 1999, so in the last millennium. We'll talk a bit more about Pakistan, but let's also talk to Adam Collins, Australian journalist, friend of the show, friend of all of us, in fact. Just back from his holiday just half an hour ago. Did you have a nice time?
I did. Crete was lovely, but I couldn't help but get straight back on the bike. I got the phone call from your producer. Can you talk about the T20 World Cup? Well, here I am, and RT setting it up beautifully with Shoaib Malik. To think that there's 2 players in this tournament who made their international debuts in the 90s, I'm going to feel depleted when there's none left. A couple of years ago, when Marcus Trescothick pulled the pin at first class level, having debuted in 1993 alongside Chris Tabaret, who made his first class debut back in 1965, I was bereft then. But when Shoaib Malik pulls the pin, I'll have a lot. I'll mourn over that. So let's hope he makes a contribution next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, we just heard after you've mentioned that Matthew Hayden raised a few eyebrows in Pakistan. Did it raise some Australian eyebrows as well?
Yep. I think he did well, didn't he, Matthew Hayden? He's mostly known as a commentator these days more than a coach. He works on the television broadcasts back home during the Test summer. Of course, he works for BCCI TV, be it through the IPL or for Indian internationals, and seeing him pop up as a T20 coach did take us by surprise, but the rationale given by Pakistan was twofold. 1, he's a winner, and 2, he's Australian, and thus he gets the gig. So good luck for some, and knowing the way that Matthew Hayden's success has followed him, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Pakistan, through the 5.5 years since the last T20 World Cup, Pakistan have actually been the number 1 ranked nation more than any other through that stretch of time. So even though they have been discombobulated somewhat in the last couple of months, and their lead up isn't what it should be after England pulled the pin and a couple of other series didn't go ahead, they've still got a group of players who have been in the squad for a long period of time and plenty of experience there. So it wouldn't stun me if Hayden does get the victory at the first time of asking. It wouldn't surprise anyone probably if Pakistan did defy expectations given their history of doing that at global tournaments.
We need to talk about Australia, don't we? Because you talk about world rankings, currently ranked 7th in the world. And Matthew Hayden's old opening partner, Justin Langer, has been posting some more weird stuff on social media. What's he been saying? What's up with Justin?
Yeah, occasionally on Instagram you see that meme or you see someone maybe post quite earnestly, live, laugh, love. It was effectively that, wasn't it? Just in longer form, a quotation there off the top that pretty much be yourself. Don't let the bad guys get you down, and all the rest of it. And look, That's very Justin Langer, isn't it? He's a very earnest individual. He carries the respect of a lot of people around the game. He had a fabulous playing career, a good record, a great record as coach of Western Australia. Was given the opportunity to coach Australia in his own right after the sandpaper farrago back in 2018. He's coming towards the end of his contract. He almost certainly won't have that renewed. Even pumping England 5-0 in the Ashes more than likely won't be enough to save him. And I say save him. In all probability, he's probably realised that this is the sort of job you do for one term, not two anyway. It's so taxing, as Darren Lehman said a couple of weeks ago, being out of your own bed for 300 days per year. I'm sure Paul can comment on how taxing it is being an international coach as well. That I think for Langer, it's about legacy. In the short term, the World T20, yes, they're ranked 7th in the world, but plenty of players with a lot of experience. Again, not too dissimilar to Pakistan. They were the number 1 ranked T20 team in the world just a year and a half ago. So they're not miles from the mark, but their form in bilateral series of late has been dire, not least when they were trounced by Bangladesh a couple of months ago. So they're coming into the tournament probably not expected to get out of the group, which you don't often say about an Australian white ball team at a World Cup.
Yeah, they were brought up by 62 by Bangladesh, weren't they, in that 4-1 walloping. I should say that Ravi raised his eyebrows when you said that England were going to get hammered 5-0 in the Ashes.
That's the last thing I want, Ellie. I mean, in my lifetime, I was born in 1984, and I've never had a competitive Ashes series in Australia. It's been obviously England were magnificent in 10-11, but Australia barely fired a shot in that series. It's been so lopsided. I'd love nothing more than getting to the 5th Test match of an Ashes series in Australia and for it to feel like the Oval did in 2005 or 2009. But, I mean, I'm just making the point that even if they did pound England in the Ashes at home, Langer won't hold on.
Yeah, that's far from a far gone conclusion, and that's an interesting prediction. Ravi, Fabi, I don't know if you want to come in and comment on Adam's prediction that Australia won't get out of the group.
Well, I hope they don't after that. After him talking about them winning the Ashes 5-0, I hope they don't get out of the group. And look, I have no sympathy with Australia and their team whatsoever at the moment, and that's not just me being very biased towards England. I think the way that they've treated Justin Langer and all the stuff that's going on around Langer is ridiculous. I mean, everybody knew that Justin Langer is an intense, hard-working, disciplined player, coach, and that's what he's built his success on. And I for the first time I actually read some sense from Mark Ward talking about coaches are allowed to be a bit grumpy. They are allowed to be a bit tense at times. That's what international sport is about. You're under pressure. It's about winning games of cricket, and I don't think that Langer's been given a fair chance at all. I think it's ridiculous the way that he's been treated. I really do.
Yeah, I'll just add that, I was being a bit flippant about the Instagram post or the LinkedIn post earlier. The issue that Langer's got isn't so much what Fabi's detailing there about his personality. The issues he's got relate to the idea that the team feel as though he's been asked to change his style and he's been unwilling to waver from the way that he goes about it. And there are some pointers to that in the LinkedIn post, really. It's that don't change the way you are, be who you are, be truthful to yourself. And the team have been fairly loud and clear with their feedback after last summer at home that they did want to see evidence of him changing a wee bit. And the fact that he's been unwilling to show that flexibility, I think that's why he's in trouble, not because of how he's risen to the top. It's more about how it's been in the last 9 or 10 months.
Always great to talk to you, Adam. We know that you don't want anything other than a competitive Ashes series, because I know you well enough to know that as well. And if Australia don't get out of the group, then that would be. I mean, there's always going to be a little bit of English Schadenfreude, isn't there? But we're all friends at the end of the day. And look, go and unpack your case.
I look forward to it, Ellie. Nice to chat.
Absolutely. Talk to you very soon. That's Adam Collins, Australian writer and broadcaster. But Fabi, before we move on to talk about Scotland, we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about India as well. But the big six hitters in this in this tournament, in this World T20 tournament, who are going to be the ones that excite us the most, do you think? We were just looking into Glenn Phillips, for example, in New Zealand, who has hit the most sixes in men's T20s this calendar year. He's hit 89 sixes, so that's more than 1 in 10 balls that he faces. He hits for six. What do you make of the big power hitters? Is that going to be the key?
I think it is, and I think, Ravi mentioned earlier about the different surfaces, and he's just talked there about, how Australia are not great at adapting. I think the teams that adapt best, that learn quickest, and get the hang of the conditions the quickest will be the teams that be successful. But someone like Phillips is extraordinary. I mean, his striking, his power, it is unbelievable, and that's where, the game has moved in such a quick direction, in such a quick change. The players that use the pace of the ball, that manipulate, and Ravi was brilliant at that. I remember Ravi in a game against Sri Lanka 2014 coming in and manipulating Lasith Malinga and using the pace and the Yorkers that he bowled. He literally kept his bat behind his foot, Ravi, and just used the pace and deflected it. That there is still room for that skill, but the power hitters are just getting more and more extraordinary. You look at Joss Buttler, the power, Jason Roy, the power that these guys have got, Johnny Bairstow in the England team. But throughout, the West Indies for me can't be ruled out of this tournament as a real favourite, because I think they, again, have got so much power. You look at their team, that they've got power right through their middle order, and the game is never over when you've got people with so much power coming in. But, it's not just about brute force and ignorance, it's actually about having good techniques. It's about having a good base, and it's not just a case of hitting balls over mid-wicket and cow corner now. People are hitting sixes, 20 rows back over backward point, over extra cover. So there is nowhere in the ground that is safe in terms of these power hitters and the arcs that they're hitting the ball. The game has moved on at such a pace.
It's quite interesting to compare it to someone like Bryson DeChambeau in golf, who said, I'm going to make myself look different. I'm going to build up my power, build up my strength. And Glenn Phillips said in an interview, at one stage, I was sort of doing 800 press-ups a day over 3 sets. I'd do a set of 300, then 300, and then 200. 800 press-ups a day.
Well, that's the norm, isn't it? I think that's, you ask Ravi, I think he's probably
is that all he was
doing 800 a day comfortably.
Is that it? 800? He needs to get in the gym. Have you seen him?
Is it all about that upper body strength? I've seen him I haven't seen him in person. But I mean, is it about that upper body strength? It's mad.
Look, I think strength definitely helps. I think the stronger you are, the heavier you are, you've got more chance of hitting the ball further. I think that's just science. But you do need to have good timing as well. So you do need to strike the ball at the right time. I think it's important that, because you do get small guys who can hit the ball at the park as well, because they've got immaculate timing. But there is something there for strength. You've seen baseball players now getting bigger and bigger and stronger, hitting the ball further. And if you look at the West Indian side, some of those boys are huge, and they hit the ball out of the park. And that's why I'm a big believer in getting big, getting strong. There's more weight behind the ball. There's more weight going into the ball, and therefore the ball should go further, even when you mishit it.
Well, Evan Lewis in the West Indies side has got, he's 75 sixes he's hit this year from 587 balls. Liam Livingstone, second on the list, of course, 82 sixes from 810 balls. I think the stats include the 100 as well. So it's, I mean, I just can't kind of get my head around the idea that, whereas you've got Bryson DeChambeau, who is hitting a stationary ball, these players are hitting a moving ball, Farby, and it's not easy, skill, isn't it? No,
and that's the other thing that people forget. We've talked about the high quality bowlers throughout this World Cup. You've got people bowling, as Ravi mentioned, you've got Tymal Mills bowling the ball at early to mid 90s. So to stand still and give yourself a real opportunity to hit a boundary off someone like that, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of skill. And as Ravi said, it's not just about the power, that there is also having the technique, having the timing, having the calmness and the presence of mind. And as I say, you see people now scoring all around the ground. So when you see somebody just going down on one knee and flicking it over their shoulder, making it look absolutely easy, that takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of skill. Livingstone is someone whose hand speed through the ball is exceptional. It is absolutely exceptional. And when he swings, everything's in the ball. But as I say, Morgan's not a big fella, but he hits some of the biggest and longest sixes, and some of his actually are over extra cover. And Moeen Ali would never forgive me if I didn't say that I saw him hit the biggest six I've ever seen in South Africa. It was huge, and he's still talking about it to this day, 6 years on. So, you don't have to be massive, you don't have to be huge, but you do have to have, as I say, a certain level of skill, but you've also got to show a lot of bravery. And hitting some of these best fast bowlers out of the park is not an easy thing to do. So, there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, and Ravi will tell you, I mean, he's hit the odd six in his time. There is a little bit about being balanced, having a good base.
Yeah.
And there's been lots of people that travel the world selling themselves as, power hitters. We've got Julian Wood in England who's done a lot of work. And Ruti did a lot of work with him. And it was about using the front foot and getting the front foot aerial as you started to swing, and then giving yourself a base and almost falling into your front leg to get that extra bit of power. So there's lots of techniques being used, but it's great for the game, and it's great for the spectators to see the ball, travelling miles and miles out to the ground at time.
So the Super 12 start week on Saturday, but the tournament itself begins on Sunday with a double-header in Oman. The second match is Scotland's opening fixture against Bangladesh, and both matches will be live on Sports Extra. Scotland's prep has been going pretty well. They've beaten Ireland, Papua New Guinea and the Netherlands in recent days. And I've been speaking to their batter, Callum McLeod, who gave us some insight into the conditions over there.
Hot. It's pretty much what you'd expect from Dubai and Oman. The wickets are fairly low. Spin will probably play a part, and the other big thing is the heat. We had a couple of days when we were in Oman where it was up at 45 and around that sort of temperature, which coming from Scotland at the end of summer is quite a shock.
Yeah, and Oman hasn't been hosting cricket for all that long. It's only 10 years since they had their first grass cricket field. So how has that been? How do you think the people out there have embraced it?
Well, it's only 10 years since their first cricket field. The improvements in the facilities there, it's remarkable. They've got a brilliant facility. They've got all the grass nets in the world you could ask for. They've got two ovals next to each other, and I think the whole board and all their players are really excited to be part of this World Cup, and you can see that, how much it means to them and the infrastructure they've put in place. And I think it'll look great on TV, and everyone's looking forward to it.
You're going to have a big challenge first up on Sunday when you play Bangladesh, because they're pretty fresh from absolutely thrashing Australia in a series.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously know how good a side they are, but if we want to come to World Cups and you want to go and challenge yourself against the best teams in the world and hopefully try and progress to the Super 12s, we know we're going to have to play some really good sides at some stage, and I think that's part of the exciting thing of it, getting out here and challenging ourselves against some of the best.
Of course, the main aim is to get through, as you say, to the Super 12s, and if you finish second in the group, you'll play England, because of course you played them famously in 2018 and you scored 140, so there are some good memories for you of playing England.
Yeah, there's obviously some real good personal memories there, and it's something I'll remember for as long as I play cricket and as long as I don't play cricket. But I think it'd be even more special if one of us gets that chance to do that in a World Cup and beat England in a World Cup game. I think that would top most things, to be honest.
What are your memories of that particular day? I mean, speaking from a personal point of view.
There's two things that really stand out for me that I always go back to. One is the innings itself. I'm obviously pretty proud of it, but the biggest thing, and the thing I always gets a bit goosebumps when I see it, is the final wicket and the pitch invasion and the passion for the cricket in Scotland. It's obviously a growing sport in Scotland, and it's got such a wide fan base there, and it was brilliant to give the crowd at the Grange that day to get out and celebrate, and that's the moment that really I remember the most, because I've never seen that in Scotland before, and it's something that I hope we can replicate.
You've been working with Jonathan Trott, of course, in the build-up to this World Cup. How impressed has he been with you all, do you think?
I think he's been very impressed. I'm sure I heard him speaking the other day, talking about some of the power and the strength and the batters and some of the sixes he's seen some of our batters hit have been as big, if not bigger, as players he's worked with in the past. And obviously, hearing that sort of comment from a guy of his experience and his knowledge in the game it builds confidence within the group. And he's always been somebody that I've wanted to come and work with. A player I looked up to a lot when he was still playing, and to sit and even just pick his brains and talk to him about the game has been invaluable.
Well, that was Scotland's Callum MacLeod. So Scotland and indeed Ireland could find themselves in the Super 12s as well if things go their way. Sri Lanka having to pre-qualify as well, Paul. So they've kind of come down quite a long way from when you won it with them just a few years ago. But look, before we finish, we've got to talk about India because they're the favourites. They are the hosts. It should have been the hosts in India, but it's all happening, as we've said, in the UAE and Oman. But the pre-tournament favourite has never won the men's T20 World Cup. So, Ravi, is it India's time?
I think they've got an amazing chance this year. Obviously, all their players, every single one of their players is playing in the IPL. They're there. They're used to the conditions. They've got a fantastic team. They've got batting, bowling, all-rounders. They've got every base covered. So, I mean, they've got a great chance. Obviously, we want England to win. Maybe England versus India in the final.
Well, that was what I was saying earlier on 5 Live, Farby. What do you think? What are India's key strengths, key elements? I mean, I was watching the KKR against Delhi Capitals earlier on, and you've got somebody like R. Ashwin just taking wickets right at the death as well.
Yeah, I think their spin options and combinations give them a great chance. I'm with Ravi. I think they've got all bases covered. We've been talking about it for the last hour. Their experience, of these last few weeks playing out there will stand them in good stead. I think their quality of all-round options. We've talked about England having so many options. I think India have got so many options in their team that they'll definitely, for me, be one of the semi-finalists. And once you get to that semi-final, then anything can happen. So, I think they've got too much quality not to be in the semi-final, too much know-how. And in Kohli, you've got someone who just drives that team forward. So, and their fielding standards have improved so much under Virat as captain. So you can't rule them out by any means.
So we've got 30 seconds left. Who's going to win? Ravi, who's your winner?
Oh, I'm stuck between Pakistan, India and England. But
Okay.
I'm gonna go, if I'm being honest, it's gonna be India.
All right. And quickly for you, Farby?
England, no other option.
All right. Well, I'll go Pakistan just for the hell of it because, who knows? It could well be. Who knows? It's going to be short. It's going to be sweet. It's going to be fascinating. Thanks to Paul Farbrace and Ravi Bopara. And thank you very much for listening.